I'm Seamus. Thank you so much for coming.
You've got a great cause worth fighting for. I couldn't wait to get here. That said, I expected, well, more people?
So far, there's only the two of us.
But we're highly motivated.
Well, it's a start.
Some people I knew already were dear friends of mine, like Little Gray Cells and Just My Stupid Opinion.
Lots of interesting things. This is absolutely abominable, and the RCMP are really in the shit here, and they know it.
Hi, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, but I think it's time that I needed to speak up.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Something you watch on TV, horror movie, you shut it off, you go to bed. We can't shut this off. Every time we close our eyes, the horror movie turns on. So I know for myself, when I close my eyes, go try to go to bed, I picture my parents being shot.
Trying to piece together a story that seems so unbelievable.
Let's have a look at this. I'm going to pause it periodically, and I'm going to try and not lose my shit because I was really angry. Really angry. I'm getting really pissed now. I'll preface this by saying I'm strongly urging all of the victims in this, the victims' families, to launch a class action lawsuit against the RCMP. And I would just love to have the RCMP under discovery. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure a lawyer would too.
Canadian Mounted Police and their stories. Stories of their courage. Stories of their lives filled with hazard, romance, and adventure. The RCMP story this week, Gunslinger.
Oh my goodness, how many windows do I have open? Okay, so I have a few windows open today, and now my head is a swimming mess. I hope we can get through this together, but we'll do it together, right? I have a very sneaking suspicion this is going to be a very long stream. I'm going to have to figure out something, some interludes, some coffee breaks, pee breaks, whatever. That's foul. My mother always said no bathroom talk. Anyway. You know, I do have manners. I do actually have manners. Linda, hello. Binks, Web Elf. We've got KL, ML. What's going down? Michael Penny. Country Mama 7. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Nosy Scotian. Crystal Edwards. It is 2:49. 10 minutes to 3. Down in Nova Scotia time. Always here for the families. Crystal Edwards, hello. Darlene Sinclair, Jumbo Slice. Already lost a viewer. Goodbye. Sorry. Guess I upset you. None of your business. Hello. Hello. I did receive your text. I'm sorry. I've been slogging away. My apologies. I really am. Just a lot of things. And this is like only tips of icebergs. I'm always into all kinds of stuff. Nicole, we got Nikki Lewis. Good afternoon. Lynn M. Loosely, I like that comment. I had to highlight it on the intro. Thanks, Blinks. Yes, we're, or Binks. We are a loosely organized conspiracy cult. There you go. I don't know. Now if we acquired the cult status, I'm not sure. Snippy Pinky. We definitely have a lot of people over in the Discord, right? I mean, they may be quiet and sitting there. A lot of people marked not there, but gotta do this anyway. Ooh, actually, I didn't want to do it that way. Sorry about that. I want to do share audio because there is something, actually, I do have a break scheduled somewhere. That there's a 13-minute little thing we can play. But I want to say, of course, many thank yous, of course, to all of the people in the Discord. Working hard, lost and found. There we go. The badge is disappearing, appearing. We've got all kinds of strange things going down. We had somebody arrested over here in Alberta for impersonating a police officer. Anybody wants to look at how they classify impersonating a police officer, the dude sounds like a seriously bad dude. Guns, AK-47s, etc. But he had a, I don't know what you want to call it, a khaki-colored coat, desert-colored coat, with a shoulder flash. I'm sure he acquired it from Tarnished Badge in his big collection. And they call that impersonation. It was sewn onto his jacket. Not quite sure how that makes him a cop. He's also got, I don't know, Mickey Mouse and all kinds of other crap on there too. We've got, oh dang, I just saw it posted above. No worry, Todd. We've got, oh dear, we've got Skull and Bones 2.0, says Michael Penny. Glad you got the D live. Glad you could join us as always, our resident guru. If I had tech skill like this, I'll tell you. I don't know. But the group collectively, loosely knit conspiracy cult has a lot of power. It's got a lot of brain power behind it. Musical Ride. We got Caper to Bert. Hello. Afternoon. And their stories. We've got Truth and All. Keep it under 10 hours. I'd like to. Trust me, I'd like to, because I need more time to research, right? My poor girlfriend. I really do feel for her. Ashley. I get to see her once a week, maybe. Linda McDonald. We've got Linda. Nancy is going to be pissed with you. She's just starting work. Yes, I heard something about that. She was not happy about the bickering comment, I think. Anyway, what are you going to do? Well, I don't think it was something else to do with the other side of that. We've got Red Crooks getting another 10 million. Oh, good. That's good. Greetings from Saskatchewan. So it is afternoon there too. It's afternoon almost everywhere except for the West Coast now. Blinks. Maybe we've got possibly we have our friends from overseas. They watch. I know there's a few of them in here. Paul Kimber. Sorry it didn't work out overseas. We'll do it another time, another lifetime, right? We've got Paul. Hi, all. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as men count slackness, but is long-suffering to us, ward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. I think that's a good way to start. Thank you, Paul. Brother Paul, for sharing that. Amen. Amen. Very busy after... Ooh, was just a little taster. I think there's big things coming down the line, but I'm working a strategy game. I do strategy. Jumbo Slice. Hello. We've got Tara in here. Hello, Tara. She's been working away on tables and things. Very exciting. Good to keep herself healthy. Got to all stay mentally healthy and stuff. Somebody told me today for the umpteenth time I have aged a great deal in the last year. That's wonderful. Thank you for that compliment. I was never on this earth to have a beauty contest nor make friends, so what difference does it make? Marion Suter, hello. Last week, I think I was 3 videos behind. It's hard to catch up with children at home. Please excuse me if I disappear. No problems. He's impersonating Disney? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. Impersonating something. I don't know what he has. Like badges. I'm not even going to get into it. You guys can look up the article. Purely ridiculous. Now, I'm probably going to need glasses. I don't know if I'm going to survive this. Now, it was all nice in my head. And then I started talking about it with somebody that we owe a great deal of gratitude towards. And again, there are people that help in the background, and we must not forget them. They are not present, so to speak, but they help a great deal and have huge amounts of knowledge. And I am always in constant gratitude, but they have so much knowledge, I become overwhelmed, which is, believe it or not, hard to do, but it is. So huge thank you to them, but they did throw a couple of new things at me, and that just, well, we're gonna wing it. Now, they're gonna hear some names that are in common. We're gonna read a bunch of articles, and you'll keep hearing the same names. And what I'm trying to demonstrate, just like I did last time, is there's a high level of corruption going on. I think we all know that. But it's kind of like people move around and then they pick up other people's garbage, and then other people are picking up their garbage. Do you follow? This is the way that it works. And all of us kind of get snowed in the details because, as you can see here, these are the amount of tabs that I'm going to deal with today, at least in this video alone. I go through about anywhere between 6 to 10 terabytes of data a month. That's 1,000 gigabytes. So is a terabyte. So what is that? 10,000 gigabytes of data a month. I read a lot and study a lot. So anyways, you'll have to pardon the joke. Why about many windows open? But you're going to hear a lot of the common names. So I don't want to keep running on at the mouth, because people say there's a call-on show, nighttime Sunday. Hopefully people ask hard questions. That would be wonderful. Love to see the hard questions flowing out. Challenging questions, good. Now, let's see here. So we have CERT. CERT was formed when? 2010. Who was the first leader of CERT? That would be this individual, Ronald McDonald. Ronald McDonald began his appointment chief civilian director of the Independent Investigations Office, which is out of BC. So he moved October 24th, 2017. He was the initial founding member, or like the leader. What do you want to call it? Director of the shit. And then he moved over to IIO, which is kind of the equivalent on the other coast on BC. A lot of garbage comes out of BC, sadly. But that's the way things go. So we're going to hear his name pop up a few times. We're going to hear some other people. So when I was goofing around on the internet this morning, reading stuff. This is the article I came across. Analyst, let's see if we can blow this up. I tried to leave links for most of the things in, and I believe most of them are archived. Some of them might not be, because I was just getting swamped with stuff. So, but the links are down below, and those that aren't archived, please feel free to archive.is and archive.org. Would appreciate, I would appreciate. And if you kept a list of links, then that way we can find them in the future, because that's what this is all about, is destroying stuff. And, you know, all we need to do is look back to, of course, the original document of the moratorium of destruction of evidence. Analyst had a copy of evidence he said RCMP destroyed in the Assoon case. Documents say Constable David Moore had vehicle registration information he believed tied to a different suspect. We have Mr. Assoon. Former RCMP constable who accuses his boss of destroying physical evidence in a high-profile wrongful conviction case had a copy of a document in question when interviewed about his allegations. Wrote a member of the force. You all know what force that is, so the RCMP investigating the RCMP. This always works out well, right? In a review obtained by CBC through the, of course, you can't look at it. Of course, I don't think CBC also additionally wants to share what they came across, because probably it's worse than what they even tell you. Same people getting paid by the same people. That would be us. Telling us all kinds of goo. Freedom of information. The evidence was, in fact, a copy of vehicle registration Constable David Moore believed connected someone other than Glenn Assoon to the 1995 murder of Brenda Way, which I will have to preface by saying I'm not too familiar with the case, but frankly, the more I'm coming across this stuff, the more I'm getting interested in it. I can't allow too much sidetracking, but I am quite interested because there seems to be things that pop up, and I like the similarities and patterns and things. Information later to be determined to be moot. By who? Oh, Inspector Larry Wilson. Again, please take note of the names. Said in his 2014 review into the missing evidence and files. Inspector Larry Wilson, of course, is RCMP. In 2019, the RCMP said documents in the Assoon case had been erased. So they themselves said that they had been erased, but gave a few details on what the evidence was and how it was missing. So this is going to be probably a refresher for many people on the East Coast, but again, it's just the tying of names, so please bear with me. Because I think maybe you'll see some things maybe that possibly you haven't. From 2001 to 2004, Moore worked for the RCMP Violent Crime Linkage Analysis System, or VICLAS, which analyzes crime data to produce leads for unsolved crimes. This is all, VICLAS came about because of Bernardo and how trying to tie serial murders together. Moore said many times that his bosses at VICLAS destroyed physical evidence he had pointing to Assoon's innocence. Assoon exonerated in 2019. Assoon was in prison for nearly 17 years, spent 5 more years under strict parole conditions before Federal Minister David Lamenti. Okay, so now we're really moving up the ranks here. Federal Minister of Justice says, oh, well, hold on a second here. This is getting pretty serious now. Ordered a new trial, saying the original conviction was likely a miscarriage of justice, not something they willingly want to admit. So probably there's something pretty serious going down here. Provincial Crown prosecutors opted not to retry Assoon, not to retry. So they're basically conceding. And he was finally exonerated, cleared, in 2019. Wilson said in his review that destroying evidence illegally would breach the criminal code, so he took Moore's allegations seriously and placed, quote, an urgent priority on recovering, an urgent priority, because that's the way the RCMP like to do things, very urgently, on recovering the missing documents and electronic material. I have things in my head always flashing through it. I'm seeing moratorium, destruction of evidence. I'm hearing the stories I've heard from people about evidence that's being destroyed, in this case, being the 23. As well as many other things I've looked at. He investigated, and some we'll look at today, he investigated Moore's claims as Assoon's lawyers worked on an appeal for his conviction. Moore was interviewed twice during the investigation. Wilson found the physical evidence was a true copy of vehicle registration that Moore thought was connected to a possible suspect. The original investigation into Way's murder found several witnesses reported seeing her in or near a red SUV times during which she was killed. Now, what caught me about this article? I'll tell you what caught me about this article was the picture. Funnily enough, sounds strange maybe to some people. I like looking at things. This is what caught my attention. The book. Coincidence? Perhaps. Have we discussed this book before? A few times. Here is Constable Moore, former, retired now, I believe. Let's have a look at what book he actually has there. Do we know what that book is? I happen to have a copy of it right here. We've discussed this book in previous videos. Why is that book there? There are some characters in this book that we will come across in these stories. Let's move along. Is he trying to say something? I don't know. Is it just a happy coincidence? I'm not sure. I've seen the same picture in a few articles. Maybe it's his only picture. I don't know. Why does David Moore care about this book? Who appears in this book? Felix Cashionne is one. Who is the current head of what? The shit. Right? The one that's doing the fire hall investigation, right? And what did he do? I've read excerpts from this book before to you. It's like story time sometimes. Let's look up Cashionne. Strange, very strange. But it could just be nothing. Call me conspiracy theory. 133 to 136. David Moore's not in here to the best of my knowledge, but not sure. Might be saying something. Danny Kane. But for Danny Kane, it wasn't his trial. Those of you who are not familiar with Danny Kane, I'm not going to get into it too depth right now. Danny Kane, an informant for the RCMP, Hell's Angels, just went off, disappeared. What happened to him? Did he commit suicide? Was he killed in jail? I don't remember. I think he was stabbed in jail. Is that what happened? I get them all muddled up. Somebody in here will get this one figured out for me. Adding that book to my reading list. Very interesting read. Julian Schur, the author of this book, tried to get in contact with him a few times early on in this. And he's hard to get a hold of. But he's written some very interesting pieces. And I'll tell you, if you go on his website, a lot of his articles come up 404. He's a very serious individual, though. Writing for New York Times, appearing on CNN, CBC. He's quite a studious individual. But he has a lot of difficulties talking about certain things. Now, let's read on. Danny Kane, it wasn't. His trial was held in a specifically converted schoolhouse surrounded by a maze of concrete barriers to help stop car bombers from ramming the building. Plainclothes RCMP officers patrolled the perimeter. Clearly, Halifax regarded Kane as a dangerous defendant and a top security risk. Kane asked for a trial in French. A trial in French. Interesting move. Very interesting move. So the Nova Scotia Supreme Court assigned the case to a Montreal-born, French-speaking judge named Felix Cashillon. Okay, interesting. Felix Cashillon was the presiding judge on Danny Kane's trial. And then he retires, and then he heads cert. The streetwise lawyer, Cashillon made his mark as a defender of civil rights and a harsh critic of illegal police tactics. In the mid-1980s, he helped Donald Marshall Jr. before his client became a household name synonymous with wrongfully convicted. One of the few non-Tories, non-Liberals to get a federal judgeship in Nova Scotia, Cashillon, I like this part, resplendent with long hair and a thick beard. Interesting. I like that style. Owed favors to no one. That made him the kind of judge a defendant like Danny Kane needed. A hard-nosed umpire who could be relied on to make sure that the rules of the game were enforced. Kane's trial didn't get started until October 1998, more than a year and a half after he had been arrested. In that time, he lost weight, muscle structure because he was no longer taking steroids. He let his hair and beard grow longer. Crown prosecutor Pierre Laplante suspected Kane was trying to change his appearance so that witnesses would have a hard time identifying. Do you see Danny Kane in the courtroom? Gee, not really, Your Honor, unless he's the guy hiding behind the beard. But it didn't really matter because the debacle that was to follow had nothing to do with Kane's appearance in court. Nor would his former lover, Simard, that's referring to Ace Simard, who is also an informant, Hell's Angel, associate. I'm not sure if he was ever patched. I don't think he was, but I could be wrong. So please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. He pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder with parole eligibility after 12 years. Simard could be back on the streets by the time he was 43 years old. He also conveniently died. Not bad for 3 murders, 2 attempted murders, and drug trafficking. It's nothing in comparison to Mr. Trudeau out of Quebec, who got what the hell was his deal? Holy Christ. Anybody ever wants to see a deal of the century, confess to, I don't remember what it was, 50, 70, some odd murders. And he got like 5 years or something ridiculous. And then he's just puttering about, because he was an informant, puttering about Montreal with his name. Everybody knows who he is, but nothing happens to him. How strange. Very, very odd, Mr. Trudeau's story. But anyway, moving along. And these diddling little kids. Quite disgusting, but everybody knew who he was. And the Hells Angels didn't murder him. Simard even asked the government to pay for liposuction. The government declined. In return, the somewhat corpulent biker agreed to testify again in Quebec and Danny Kane in Halifax. As it turned out, however, no jury would believe him. Discredited by past crimes, which included bearing false witness, Simard was a terrible délecteur. Not a single biker has gone to prison based on his testimony. Funny that. Cashionne would later state Simard, quote, displayed a cold-blooded remorselessness and a manipulative personality while testifying. Cashionne quickly lived up to his reputation for toughness when he ruled inadmissible. Okay, this is key part to this. Cashionne quickly lived up to his reputation for toughness when he ruled inadmissible the RCMP computer records showing that Blinn, we're going to come across Mr. Blinn in this story. We already have. This is a repeat for some people, but there's more to this story. Had pulled over a white Buick and checked out Danny Kane. Cashionne claimed Blinn had no cause to stop Kane and therefore had violated his constitutional rights. Evidence arising from the incident was therefore illegal. No, the screen is not moving. Was therefore illegal. This included Blinn's CPIC search of Kane, which in of itself is the single most objective piece of evidence that confirmed Simard's story. So, basically, it just goes on to talk a little bit about Blinn and the evidence getting tossed, which then resulted in Danny Kane getting off. Convenient. Felix Cashionne, Danny Kane, Blinn. Moving back to the article. Road to Hell. Call me a conspiracy. Maybe it's just a funny coincidence. Moore's Viclass analysis had produced 3 suspects who weren't assumed, and the constable was trying to prove one of them had access to a red Chevy Blazer at the time, said Wilson. Again, please make note of these names. The Registry of Motor Vehicles provided Moore with a copy of the suspect's vehicle registration. Quote, what Constable Moore did not disclose to Inspector Wilson during the interview was that he actually had photocopies of the documents, which he was calling, quote, physical evidence in his property. Wilson wrote about Wilson. Nothing to see here. RCMP, investigating RCMP on destruction of evidence, and he's quoting himself. Never mind, nothing to see. SUV may be a, quote, moot point. Wilson was also able to get his own copy of the registration. Good for him. The document did not conclusively show the suspect took possession of the vehicle, leaving in doubt if they had it on the night of the murder. Quote, regardless of all the issues surrounding whether or not the suspect had access to the red Blazer on the night of Brenda Way's homicide may be a moot point because there are witnesses who saw her alive after she noted getting into a red vehicle that night. Wilson wrote, we don't have any substantiation of that. Beginning to think of that McKay, or what was it? Somebody corrected my pronunciation on that. McCaw? Whatever. Who did get a promotion, by the way. I just put in the wrong name. I misspelled it inadvertently. It's MC, not MAC. In the last video. And he did get a promotion. He retired as a staff sergeant. You know, you do those kinds of things, you get a bump. That's what happens. You snow the public, you do all kinds of things, you get promoted. Not only was the significance, he didn't get a white shirt out of it though, but I think Angela might. Not only was the significance of an SUV in dispute, but Moore himself admitted to Wilson he had no information or evidence that proved Assoon's innocence. The inspector wrote in his review, not that he has any kind of bias at all, right? Being that he's RCMP, and he's defending his own institution, and he's the one who's doing the report, and he's quoting himself. Nothing. Constable Moore claimed a number of times in different forms that he had evidence that Glenn Assoon was an innocent man, and his analysis supported it, Wilson said. Well, during his interview with Inspector Wilson, Constable Moore conceded that he had no evidence that Glenn Assoon was innocent beyond identifying 3 alternate suspects. Now, that may or may not, in fact, be true. I don't know if the RCMP ever did investigate these alternate 3 suspects. I'm not sure of that. Those of you who know, Mackay, there you go. See, I just need help with my pronunciation all the time. Moot, it's a legal term, moot. Mackay. Okay, Mackay, thank you. Troy Cook went missing. Okay, yeah, Troy Cook's an interesting, yeah. That's all. Bigger things for another day. We'll just focus on this one. Wilson wrote he examined 233 cases. Please take note of the number. Moore had analyzed at Vic Glass and found that 39 had no analysis worksheets attached to them, meaning they had been removed, quote, removed by someone. He found a further 95 of those records had been modified. Way's file was one of those dozens modified, almost 100. Almost 100, CBC, not dozens, but almost 100. Or deleted worksheets. But if we do a little bit of math, that's 134. Is that correct? 134 out of what? 233. That's over half of them. That's a pretty serious problem. And who wrote that? Wilson. Search for missing documents. Wilson noted Moore initially said that all of his analysis had been erased, but one of the 3 worksheets was still attached to Way's file in Vic Glass. Wilson also found inconsistencies in Moore's account when he learned that the files were missing. Again, I would say that they're looking to throw him under the bus. It's not truly an independent thing, right? This is going to cause all kinds of headaches for the RCMP. His review also looked at Moore's claims that other items had disappeared from Vic Glass' office. Wilson found that 2 items, a timeline chart, and copies of the psychological report on Michael McGray, a serial killer Moore named as a suspect in Way's murder. And those items have just poof, gone missing. Some of the other paperwork Moore said had gone missing was not found. Well, does that not mean also that they had disappeared? I think that's kind of the same thing, isn't it? And how much is some of CBC, propaganda wing of the government, of course, which all media are, because they're all supplemented by us. CBC just happens to get a little bit more that we know of. Some of the other paperwork Moore said had gone missing was not found. Had gone missing was not found. So it's also missing. Quote, given the passage of 10 years and the fact that his documents were not placed on the Brenda Way working file, it is plausible his documents were simply misplaced or destroyed as part of the office's ongoing efforts to get rid of what may have been believed as unnecessary paper. We all pay for that storage. Frankly, I don't care. Store it. It's like the destruction of the memos, right? Internal intelligent memo. Mr. Wardman's going to go around and kill cops. Oh, but we destroyed that. Or ever want to find something very interesting, try and look up Picton. Picton and destruction of evidence. Very interesting. Mr. Picton, who has exhausted all of his appeals, has zero chance of seeing the light of day, basically came and tried to prevent the RCMP from destroying the file. All the files and all the evidence. Why do you think that might be? Could it be the families wanted it saved? And he, funnily enough, wanted it saved. Try and find the movies that were made. Try and find the documentaries on Fifth Estate. You remember all those? I do. Poof, everything. Poof, poof, poof. I was watching it go down real time as this has all been going down. Pretty scary stuff. They were just wiping shit out. And it's just like this case, just like Nova Scotia. That's why archive.is, archive.org is extremely important. And saving the links, because you don't have the link. Once it goes poof and it gets delisted out of the DNS, i.e. Google is part of the DNS, you'll never find it again. Concerns over work quality. Wilson found that shortly after Moore had moved off of VicLAS, was moved off of VicLAS in March 2004, Sergeant Dick Hutchings asked his staff to review all of Moore's work over concerns about its quality. That bus is just rolling. Got to run him over. Some of the analysts found issues with Moore's work, and what did the analysts do? Oh, they modified the original worksheets. They modified them. So did they modify them to say that there were issues? I would think that would be about right up the alley of the RCMP at this point in time. Seriously. Quote, there's evidence that one analyst in particular inappropriately deleted some of Constable Moore's worksheets during this process, Wilson wrote. Although there is no way to absolutely substantiate it because the analyst denies having deleted the worksheets. This may have happened to the missing worksheets. Do you see what's going on here? Do you see it? I'm trying to help people see the corruption. This is fucking crazy, man. Wilson said Moore mistakenly thought that one of his bosses could delete the worksheets when, in fact, anyone working at the VicLAS office could have done so. Whose word do we have on that again? We'll get to that. Moore responds to the review. Asked about the review on Thursday, Moore reiterated. He reaffirmed it. His claim that the RCMP had illegally discredited his work. Illegally. Remember all the videos I talked about their illegality? Just like yesterday. He said in an email that Wilson, quote, was covering up as any good old boy soldier RCMP should for the corruption of high-ranking officers. covering up high-ranking officers' white shirts, corruption. And who's a white shirt but Mr. Wilson? At the time of his interviews with Moore, Wilson had worked for the RCMP for 32 years, including as a what? Senior Vic Glass specialist. Oh, nothing to see here. It's not like it was his department or anything. Nothing at all. Come on. He created and taught a course teaching officers on how to use the system. In fact, it's my understanding he wrote a book on this. Literally. In 2013, he moved to Nova Scotia's Major Crimes Unit, which oversees VicLAS. Who's dealing with the case down there? Major Crimes. The 23, that's Major Crimes. In 2014, VicLAS contained about 400,000 cases, meaning analysts had to tighten their search criteria until they got fewer than 400 matches. The analysts could restrict the search to crimes committed by white men, say, or cases where the victim was a woman in her 20s. I'm sensing something underlying there, but I do understand that this is, of course, about Assoon and the other Mrs. Way, Ms. Way, but still, it's almost like they're kind of putting this back in the public realm, you know, kind of like that person you can't say the name of, and a woman, femicide. Wilson said VicLAS is not like DNA or fingerprints, calling it, oh, quote, more of an art than a science. Some analysts might see linkages where others do not, even when none truly exists. This sounds like something really good, really tried, tested, and true. Review questions Moore's judgment. Now, it may be, in fact, very good. I don't know, but clearly they don't believe it's bulletproof. Review questions Moore's judgment. The inspector said it's extremely important that analysts start their work with no preconceived ideas about who might be responsible for a crime. But Wilson said Moore had deliberately set up the search criteria that would always return 3 suspects in Way murder. How do we know that? I don't know. Just take their word for it. Not that he has any bias. Not that this was his department. Not that he's a white shirt. Not that he wants to protect the corruption. No, nothing here. Nothing to see here. Even though he admits, oh goodness, over 50%, 60 probably, of my stuff has been deleted or altered. I can't find the things that he was talking about, that he said were missing. You know, sounds like he might be telling the truth. He said Moore spoke to the superintendent of the building where Way's body was found, even though Wilson noted the analyst is supposed to hand in his findings to an investigator to follow up. Perhaps he was going out of his way. I don't know, because maybe it doesn't sound that great. But perhaps he was going out of his way because people weren't investigating it properly. And he decided, you know, I'm going to go and do this on my own. I don't know. Possible. Quote, the minute the analyst crosses that line and takes the investigator role to follow up on the investigator role to follow up or verify their own leads, they lose objectivity and can develop tunnel vision, he wrote. Constable Moore appears to have no hesitation crossing that line. Well, kind of like you guys destroy evidence. What about that line? Of course, then CBC is going to follow that up with an excerpt going on about that. What about all the destruction of evidence? Do you want to talk about that one? What about the fact that they conceded? What about the justice minister, in fact, or the court system agreed with all of it? Wilson concluded that Moore had told many people he felt Assoon was innocent, but the review found no evidence that Moore ever presented any document or documented support to find his feelings. Whose review? Whose review? The RCMP's review, the white shirt review, done by his boss. Okay, not believing this shit. Directly relevant data gets deleted or burned all the time. Yeah, okay. No, nothing to see here. 900 entries. No, nothing. Finally, although Constable Moore provided persons of interest, anyone who may turn out to have committed the Brenda Way homicide, it's not possible for VICLAS analysts to conclusively establish any of them committed a homicide or that Mr. Assoon did not. Did he, in fact, say, or was he presenting three alternative suspects? Did you ever investigate the three alternative suspects? I don't know. Please correct me. I'm not reading that. I'm not reading that we followed up on that, and it just absolutely seems to be bullshit. I'm reading that we destroyed the evidence, the psychological profile, the timeline. Just the guy was screaming for help. This one I like. Wilson also learned that Moore had encountered Assoon one time before he started working on the case. When I first saw that, I was like, ooh, that does maybe not sound so good. In the mid-1990s, Assoon was in court ahead of his murder trial. Moore happened to be in the courtroom at the same time, escorting Freeman McNeil to a court appearance over his role at the Sydney River McDonald's murder. Oh, no. He just happened to be in court doing his duties, which is kind of normal for a policeman. Glenn Assoon let out a horrendous shriek. I didn't know who the guy was that he didn't do this. My hair stood on the back of my neck. I didn't know. My hair stood on the back of my neck, and he screamed in court that day. Moore told Wilson, I said, whoever, he doesn't know who that was, whoever that guy was who let out the scream, if there was ever any a cry for help, that guy was screaming for help. They must have scrubbed through a lot of tapes to find that, or gone through the court records. Holy, I don't think I would remember it. Would you? Years and years and years before? He goes to court all the time. They see people all the time. Are we going to start going after policemen who don't see recidivism? Hello? Assoon reached a compensation deal. Clearly, that's conceding legally. We really screwed up here. Earlier this year with the federal and provincial governments. BC's provincial police dog is investigating the wrongful conviction and appeal. Who's the BC provincial watchdog? Oh, that's right. The IIO. That would be Ronald McDonald. The Ronald McDonald. The same Ronald McDonald that was the head of CERT. He moves from CERT and goes over to IIO. And then he's doing the investigation on the Assoon thing. Cool. RCMP deleted documents in wrongful conviction case, federal report finds. RCMP say files were deleted against policy, but not with malicious intent. It's an interesting picture of Mr. Assoon. But, can't ever judge a book by its cover, can you? A newly released federal report reveals RCMP deleted documents linked to suspects, including serial killer, to the killer at the center of a high-profile wrongful conviction case. The bundle of documents released by Nova Scotia Supreme Court Judge Friday were instrumental in overturning the murder conviction of Glenn Assoon. The bundle of documents wrongful conviction, overturning the murder conviction of Glenn Assoon, who spent nearly 17 years behind bars. They were unsealed following an application by the CBC News, Canadian Press, and Halifax Examiner. Hats off to Tim on this one. We never get to see them, which I'm not sure why. They should be publicly available once you... Because definitely in the case of these two institutions, they're getting money. Not so sure about Halifax Examiner. Don't know. Preliminary assessment compiled by the Justice Department investigator Mark Green said former RCMP Constable Dave Moore told him during an interview he uncovered 3 other strong suspects in the 95 killing of Brenda Way in Dartmouth. The suspects included notorious serial killer Michael Wayne McGray and another man named Avery Greenbow, Greenaw. I don't know. Like I said, I'm sorry. I don't know the history of this case. I will maybe bring myself up to speed on this one, but who has a history of committing various sexual assaults, or vicious sexual assaults, my apologies. Moore was part of a special analysis division called VicLAS in the early 2000s. He attempted to share information he uncovered about the Way case with two others, including Assoon's defense lawyers. Moore told the federal investigator that the unit's findings were not routinely shared with the court. That's not so good. The RCMP's policy was that it was not necessary to share work. But, you know, like that interview I showed you yesterday. Not necessary. You don't really need to know. And then, hearing all this, keeping in mind about Nova Scotia and the 23. Keep this all in mind. Because this is the same institution. The RCMP's policy is that it's not necessary to share the work, quote, since all the information that analysis was based on was otherwise available from other sources. So, you know, it's out there somewhere, but we don't really have to share it. You just have to go and find it. No. Moore said his superiors told him that he was wasting time, quote. They told Moore that the matter had been decided by the Supreme Court and that it was not worth pursuing, the report said. Quote, despite being told to stop working on the Way murder, Moore felt compelled to carry it on as he believed there was a strong possibility that Assoon had been wrongfully convicted. Oh, that's terrible. Police work. What are you doing? He then took on his concerns to the head of the RCMP Major Crimes Section and was asked to put together more information. Who was the head of the RCMP Major Crimes Section at that time? Could it possibly, I'm not saying that, could it possibly have been Wilson, who was the one that did the investigation? I'm not sure. Moore was heading on vacation, but he intended to do so when he returned. When he came back from his holiday, he had been transferred out of the unit. He wasn't given a reason why. Then, his work on the Way murder disappeared. He alleged it was intentionally destroyed. Certainly looks like over 60% of your shit is destroyed. Assoon's appeal lawyer, Jerome Kennedy, told federal investigator that he had requested any information about the other suspects in the case, including McGray. Kennedy maintains that the only response he received was a memo that clearly indicated McGray was not considered a suspect. Believe us, just believe us now. We're going to tell you. All he asked for was the evidence of possibly did he investigate. They were like, no, we just don't believe he's a suspect. Ugh. On Friday, the RCMP admitted pages were missing from the RCMP booklets that were related to the killing. The Mounties said that they conducted an investigation in 2014 and found that worksheets had been deleted in 2004. RCMP Inspector Lynn Young, white shirt, said Friday the files were erased against policy, but it maintained it had not done so with malicious intent. Oops. Sorry about that. My Sharpie slipped. My shredder just happened to get those pages. If anything has been done, it has not been intentional or was a mistake, said the very internal review of themselves. Young said during a news conference in Halifax. At least he did a news conference. She did a news conference. But there has been no intention that the RCMP in any way tried to do a cover-up. Asked about Muir's claim that he had brought his findings to his superiors and the RCMP, Young said, "We have not been able to confirm or deny that." Kind of like Israel does with nuclear weapons. It's a policy to use that psychological babble. That is basically saying, yeah, you just need to, of course, sort your way through the crap. Because anybody who didn't do something, they're going to what? Oh, that's right. Deny it. Right? They wouldn't confirm it. Especially dishonest people. In a statement, Moore apologized to Assoon and said the system has too few checks and balances. Lots of oopsies with important data. Lots of oopsies. The cruelty, dishonesty, corruption, and continued cover-ups makes me want to vomit, Moore said, who is no longer a member of the RCMP. Told CBC by an email. This is the very organization he worked for, and this is how he describes it. Sounds like a good cop to me. Just trying to do the right thing. And once again, he got thrown under the bus. The Provincial Justice Department declined to comment on Friday. The report also revealed that a man named Michael Hebert and McGray were in prison together when McGray slipped Hebert a note that told him details about the crimes he'd committed. A host of new information. It said Hebert told investigators that McGray said, quote, he murdered a prostitute that lived close to him in Dartmouth and that he slit her throat. Quote, he said he dropped her body at the back of his building and that police found a body in a dumpster, the document said. McGray is currently in prison in Quebec, thank you, where he should be serving 7 life sentences for multiple murders. He's not eligible to apply for parole for another 18 years. My granddad would be like, bring back the death penalty. Let me sit on that case. Why are we wasting all this money? In his conclusion, Green said that there was a host of new information suggesting links between Michael McGray as well as other suspects and the murder of Brenda Way. Quote, I am of the view, on the basis of all this new and significant information, there may be reasonable basis to conclude that there is a miscarriage of justice likely occurred in your case. Likely. Way's body was discovered behind an apartment building. On Albro Lake Road in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, November 12, 1995. The 28-year-old had been stabbed multiple times and her throat slashed. Suspicion immediately fell on her former boyfriend, Assoon, now 63, who was charged and convicted with second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Maybe because he had hair and a beard. I don't know. That almost makes me want to get a haircut. His appeal was rejected by the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal and Supreme Court of Canada refused to hear his case. Assoon maintained his innocence during his nearly 17 years behind bars. He managed to persuade lawyers from the Association in Defense of the Wrongfully Convicted, a group later renamed Innocence Canada, to get involved. I think I've had some dealings with them and something else. The group then persuaded the federal justice minister to take federal justice department to take another look at the case. What investigators for the department found prompted Justice Minister David Lametti to overturn Assoon's conviction earlier this year. Not good. Brenda Way's son. Sad. Brenda Way's son, Rob Renner, said he doesn't remember a lot of things about his mom because he was 7 when she was killed. He said his mom had a tough life. You know, that quote actually brings back something about last night I was looking at about, what is it? Stage 4 dementia. Gleany. You know, the Gleany that they never interviewed, but they verified his voice and all that stuff for months and months and months and months and months and months. Oh, and then they finally discovered him. How he could remember. Was it he or Neil? I can't remember. Being hung over the fucking railing when he was 3.5. Stage 4 dementia, Gleany. On the ferry. Yeah. Okay. I believe that one. He said his mom had a tough life. Quote, I didn't get to know her, said Renner at 30 in an interview Friday, but I remember that she was a kind person and that she loved kids. Destroyed my life. Outside court Friday, Assoon said he remains angry, but he's trying to move on with those feelings. It's been 21 years. They destroyed my life. The time is gone and I'll never get it back. Assoon has called for a public inquiry into his case. Good luck with that. Good luck with getting a nice clean one. Nah, not going to happen. In handing down his decision, Justice James Chipman said the public deserved to know the information in the documents. I'd like to know. The press has it. Mr. Assoon must be able to tell a story, said Chipman. The media must be able to report on why the minister made his decision. They have it. The reams of documents, remember? CBC, Canadian Free Press, and, funnily enough, Examiner. Tim, I believe. Okay. So I don't think there's anything else in this article. Now we'll move on to the next one. Retired Mountie backs ex-colleague's analysis into Assoon's wrongful conviction case. Quote, I looked at it, what he did, because I could see his worksheets and I thought it was pretty sound. At least 2. Better than the one that they had. The RCMP white shirts had, who they said denied what they were saying, that they pinned it on him, that he was deleting stuff. Remember that one? Analysis concluded that Glenn Assoon didn't kill Brenda Way. Since documents relating to Assoon's wrongful conviction were released on July 12th, the role of the retired RCMP Constable Dave Moore has been widely reported. It was Moore, using the RCMP's Violent Crimes Analysis Linkage System, or VICLAS, who first identified serial killer Michael McGray as a more likely suspect. Just don't go on holidays because you'll get moved. And then run out. Moore's information was not passed on to Assoon's defense team. I like people who are innocent going to jail. That sounds smart. When he was returned from his 2-week vacation. I haven't even read this article fully, so that's just had been transferred out of the VICLAS unit and his files destroyed. Fellow retired Mountie Giles Blinn Giles Blinn. Giles Blinn. Remember reading you that excerpt? Cashionne. Throughout the information on Danny Kane. What information did he throw out? That's right. Giles Blinn. Who supported some of Moore's conclusions, finds it extremely unusual. This is a repeat by and large, but for those of you who don't know, but there's still more to come. Quote, only people with certain rights can delete worksheets, Blinn said on Thursday. It could only be a supervisor or someone else working on the file. You know, because I'm sure people working on the file want to delete it. Following the release of the Assoon files, the RCMP acknowledged that information had been deleted. Oh, thanks. They didn't put some. Quote, the deletions were contrary to policy and shouldn't have happened. Oops. That intelligence police memo about Wortman, that just kind of fell into the shredder too. All of it falls into the shredder. So does the car. So does all the evidence up until October. Destruction of evidence memo. And God knows it probably did after. I bet you they were all working overtime. Destroying shit. That's what they were really doing down there. Quote, they were not done. However, with malicious intent. The statement added. The RCMP statement. You can't ask a statement on a piece of what? Hey, paper, what do you think about that? I'm not hearing anything. I do hear it when leather does it. This is all a big joke on us. And it's our money. And 23 in this case. Your dirty laundry's coming out. And the more of it I'm finding, the more I'm going to do. The more RCMP says policy has been changed. Trust us on this one. We've fixed it now. No malicious intent, just keeps coming up. You guys again, right? Yeah. In response to an inquiry from the CBC, the RCMP issued a further statement on July 15th, which said a policy change means one VicLast user can no longer delete another user's file. But what about the supervisor? What about that? It falls somewhat short of explaining what actually happened, Blinn. Blinn, let's see about Blinn also, because he's got another interesting tie to this. Could just be happy coincidence. Not just the pullover. Big morale changes and a year marked by trauma. Criticism. That's fine. Blinn. Oh, what's going on here? Actually, let's try this one. Actually, I think it's down here. Blinn's son was one of the officers who responded to Portapique on April 18th. Though he stressed he could not speak for his son's experience and didn't know exactly what happened on the night of that morning. Coincidence? Oh, my dog peed all over my floor. That's most unfortunate. Coincidence? Maybe. I should drop that article in just so that I'll archive it once again. I don't know what all that means. Why? Is it just coincidence? RCMP runs in the family. Absolutely. And Giles seems like a really stand-up guy. It's just strange. It falls somewhat short of explaining what actually happened, Blinn said from his home in New Brunswick. He retired last year at the rank of Staff Sergeant, 31 years in the RCMP. In the early 2000s, Blinn was a VICLAS analyst in New Brunswick. He reviewed Moore's work. I looked at what he did because I could see the worksheets and thought it was pretty sound. It was good. Blinn did his own analysis of McRae cases and found a possible link to Way's murder, but Blinn didn't pursue it further. But Dave Moore did. Oh. Dave Moore did. He said VICLAS analysts didn't appear to always hear what the police forces did with the information provided. VICLAS was created in the aftermath of the case of Paul Bernardo, notorious murderer, the serial rapist who preyed on women in southern Ontario. He was eventually declared a dangerous offender and has been locked up indefinitely. Moore praised for going beyond the basics. But police at the time recognized that they didn't always see similarities or connections in the case. VICLAS was meant to fill that gap with analysts in every part of the country. Okay, so it's once again just an art, not a science. Blinn said Moore was very good at his job and would go beyond the basic work of an analyst. And if you have a department that's not listening to you, you're kind of fucked. And that's what he says here. Blinn said he would do that as well, but he said there was one critical difference. Quote, I had the support of my superiors, unlike Mr. Wilson, who I don't know if he was head of the VICLAS at that point in time, but he was at one point. And who were more seniors? Why don't they have names? Why aren't they in the paper? It's no secret that Moore clashed with others in the RCMP. Oh, you do that. That's a problem. Once again, we have the picture. The picture appears a lot of places. Maybe it's his only picture. I don't know. Maybe it's just a strange coincidence. In February, I was talking about do you guys remember when I did the video? Maybe somebody can refresh my mind because I forget, I would say about 99% of what I come across, quite literally, which is very unfortunate. But the video that I played that had Sean and Alana's scene in the background, talking about the RCMP with the car, it was a global video, had nothing to do with Nova Scotia, and then suddenly they just have that picture there, and I'm like, why is that there? Doesn't even belong In February 1989, he was stationed in Prince Edward Island. Moore said that he was charged with forcible confinement for his treatment of an accused man. This is part of the bus. Do you see? Like, if you get out of line with the RCMP on anything, you do anything, you're going to get charged. Remember the case I talked about a long time ago about the fellow with the cookies? I forget his name. I know I'm going to get a phone call about that one. There's lots of them. There's I'm going to have to do a story about an insurance at some point here. That one's pretty. You don't want to go against white shirts and give them a ticket. Trust me. He hired famed defense attorney. There's lots of them. It's got lots. Edward Greenspan to represent him. Greenspan, who described the charge as, quote, BS and, quote, a joke, and said that had the sense that if Moore had offered to resign, the charge would have been withdrawn. Of course. Bum rush you out of town. Went with his mother with cookies. Yeah. To the actual commissioner's office. The case I spoke about quite a long time ago. It's back in the videos. I think there's 2 parts to it. And involves a very good white shirt, funnily enough, who also got bum rushed out. Moore also, after having gotten awards, everybody got awards because they got shamed. And they were like, oh, yeah, oops. Oh, yeah, here's some awards for you all. And then when out of the public eye, they fucked everybody that blew whistles in that case, including a white shirt, including one of their own. Never want to do that. Moore also faced internal disciplinary charges, but was found not guilty. Thank goodness. The criminal charge against him was eventually stayed. By then, he transferred to Nova Scotia, probably hostile work environment, where he initially received glowing performance assessments for his work. But then in 1998, Moore clashed again with his superior officer, accusing him of failing to assist in an arrest and even concealing evidence. Oh, do we have more of this going on? Of course. Is there validity to probably what he said? I would say highly probable. Highly probable. Given what I've read of this man. Blinn backs ex-colleagues' work. Moore, Blinn, right? Remembering Blinn? Got to keep all this in mind. Blinn, Cashionne, blah, 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 blah. Moore said by the time he's examining the Assoon file, he believes others, the RCMP, were trying to get him out. It's just crazy, though. Blinn acknowledged that his friend and former colleague was outspoken, but said his work on the case was correct. Remember, he's one of 2, at least. Moore's research on the Assoon case was done in 2004, never made it to Assoon's lawyer, who in 2006 was unsuccessful in appealing the murder conviction. It wasn't until 2014 that Assoon was released on strict bail conditions. When an investigator from the Federal Justice Department reviewed the case, he was only exonerated in March this year. Ouch. That's a long time. Now, independent investigation to begin on the allegation the RCMP destroyed evidence in Glen Assoon. I know that I'm being repetitive, but please bear with me. And I don't know what's going on with my dog. Can you give me one moment, please? Grab yourself a coffee. Okay, sorry about that. Must pee poodle. Okay, so good. Can't stay and watch. Hi, Tracy. Sending strength, loving strength, and prayers. Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Anyone know Pup's name? You want to know my dog's name or somebody else's Pup's name? Make sure that Binks is back. We'll give time for Binks to pee the dog. Mine just happened to pee all over the floor. He has no control of his bladder anymore. It's quite sad. That's what happens when you get old. My dog's name, his name is Tai, which is Vietnamese. But you can just say T. And that means little one in Vietnamese. It's kind of a pet name, a house name. Nickname, as you would say in English. Fitting. He's a little one, I thought. Anyway. Once upon a time, I could speak a little Vietnamese. Maybe I still can. I don't know. We'll see. My memory's pretty terrible for languages. It's pretty terrible all around. Anyway. Now, do we have Binks back? Binks on his... Oh, we got lucky tent sales. Oh my. You have to do something with the mat, I think. The mat. I like the mat. I got to get the mat quotation. It was pretty horrendous. Who was protected and who was warned? I think a lot of people knew what was going down, just sadly. Dog's name is Nick. Whose dog's name is Nick? Oh, no. No, that's nickname. I said nickname. Vietnamese call the nicknames like house names. House name. T. Spelled like this. There you go. They. Okay. Now, all right, we got Binks back. Underwater sales. Underwear sales not working out. Okay. My dog's named Joseph Cohen. Oh, God, don't get me started. All right. So we're all back. Good. Now, independent investigation into the allegations RCMP destroyed evidence in the Glen Assoon case. Okay, so we're going to get a bunch of rinse repeat, but I might as well just read it all. The civilian-led police watchdog in BC. Who's that? And Ronald McDonald. Don't you know? Hi, Ronnie. Ronnie, who was the founder, director, 6 years in CERT, Nova Scotia, before moving to the other coast and doing IIO, which now will turn out to be what? Civilian-led police watchdog in BC will begin investigating allegations that the RCMP in Nova Scotia inappropriately destroyed evidence that was used in the 1999 wrongful conviction of Glen Assoon. Because you never really walk away. Assoon, who spent nearly 17 years in prison for the 1995 death of Brenda Way, was granted bail in 2014, lived under strict conditions before 2019 Supreme Court ruling reversed the conviction. 2019 Federal Justice Minister report revealed that RCMP unit, including Halifax police officers, destroyed a constable's database on information gathered on other suspects, physical evidence officers had gathered to back up his case. The destruction of evidence occurred prior to 2006 appeal hearing, which he lost. Keep remembering those moratoriums on destruction of evidence, and please also keep in mind about, where's my prop? Where did it go? Did somebody steal my props? Props to my props. I want the yard one. I'm going to get the yard one because we're going to have a few go down in this story, I think. I saw somebody put that in chat with Paul and Jordan. Jenga. Fitting. Fury. The Mounties decided internal review about the destruction of former Constable Dave Moore, who got bum rushed out, I would assume. And there was no malicious intent. Memos, everything falling into the shredder. Picton into the shredder. Everything goes into the shredder. In September 2020, then Minister Justice and Attorney General Mark Fury. Oh, funny that. Can we all say it in unison? Jenga. As the Serious Incidents Response Team Serious Incidents Response Team Serious Incidents Response Team Serious Incidents Response Team in Nova Scotia to investigate whether there was criminal misconduct by the police during a period of Assoon's appeal. In the interest of transparency, Director Cashionne asked the Independent Investigations Office of BC to conduct the investigation into this historical matter, said CERT in a news release Thursday. No, I don't want it. I don't want it. Oh, okay. Who can we send it to? Oh, that's right. We'll send it over here. He used to be in CERT. No problems here. This is such a fucking joke. It's such a fucking joke. The IIO is under the leadership of who? Ronald J. McDonald, the former director of Nova Scotia CERT. Or the shit. Fire halls, anybody? Hello, Dan. Hello, countryside. How's it going? IIO investigation will begin to work in the near future and, quote, in the near future, sometime we'll get there. But don't worry about it. Remember how long that fire hall with the Chevy tractor came out to get it? And the bonking, which is going to help Morrison. That's why the bonking's in there. It has nothing to do with the fire hall. Tattoos, fire hall, thin blue lines. People questioning Lisa, questioning other people, fire halls. Anyway, just letting people know who know. They know. I know. In the future, we'll come to Nova Scotia, quote, as necessary. Thanks for coming out, Ronnie. Their investigation will also look into whether a member of Halifax Regional Police committed an offense related to the conviction. The IIO utilizes a, quote, start from zero approach, drawing no conclusions, because the IIO doesn't have any involvement with police at all, RCMP at all. Not that Mark Fury did either. Drawing no conclusions regarding the outcome of the investigation while working together all the available evidence. Said the release notes. You know. The civilian director will then review the evidence and, applying relevant legal principles, will determine whether reasonable grounds exist to believe that any officer may have committed offense. I think I'm going to link something here, since we're all on the same page. We'll link that report. Recent publications. Let's go back in time. You don't have to go too far back because, hell, how long was it before they completed that? Where's that report? Do you happen to have it handy? Julie, do you happen to have it handy? Would be muchly appreciated, because I can't remember what date exactly that was. I have it in my files here. I can find it. But to actually give the link to it, I would like to, that awesome report. Fuck off. Oh, here we go. I actually have a video.
Thank you all. And out of respect for everyone who I'm sure is interested in hearing from panelists and asking questions of your own, I'm going to keep this fairly brief. For a lawyer, that's...
I was watching a long time ago. Mr. Rosenberg. Is that his name? Rosenthal. There we go. There's one for you, Todd. He got appointed to the Independent Investigations Office and Civilian Oversight Policing. Prior. Quite a winner chicken dinner. This guy was too. But just for you, Todd, I'll give you that. I was studying him some time back. February 17th. Oh, good, because it took, so long. February 17th. Is it February 23rd? Okay. There we go. Copy. Pretty close. You got it. There we go. Okay. Anyway, we'll move back to that article. Where were we here? Because they do really good reports. You think Felix and Ronnie might know each other? Maybe. Just maybe. I don't even know what you're typing. Zillion. I got a dog who pees on the floor. That's what I got. And I got you guys, and I think we've got a pretty fucking snazzy family. I like our family. We've got a family. A lot better than fucking around with dirty people. Felix the fraud. I don't want to malign him. I just wish to demonstrate connections. Civilian director will then review the evidence and, applying relevant legal principles, will determine whether reasonable grounds exist, whether an officer may have committed offense. I think this is a copy pasta. You can just basically throw that in. CERT uses it. Everybody uses it. Just use it while you can. The IIO is currently under the leadership of Ronnie McDonald, the former director of the shit. Did we do this one already? I don't think so. Ex-Mountie dismisses provincial inquiry into Soon wrongful conviction. If Canadians need an explanation as to why this happened, and can we prevent it from happening again? Canadians need You know, it's just kind of like the 23 families. We all need. Here we go with that picture again. This time CBC decides to get it out of there. Excuse me. One of the first people to question whether Glenn Assoon was really the man who murdered Brenda Way is speaking out. Retired RCMP Constable Dave Moore wasn't an analyst who work suggested serial killer Michael McGray, or perhaps another man, might more likely be suspect in Way's killings. Canadians need an explanation as to why this happened and can we prevent it from happening again. Seems like a good thing. Moore said in a video statement emailed to CBC, Way's body was discovered behind the apartment building, stabbed several times, throat slashed, missing that part. And do we have something in here I'm looking for? Oh, yes, here we go. One of the retired RCMP Constable Dave Moore was an analyst. Where is that? Sorry, I'm missing something here. Aren't I? No, it's not in this article. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a lengthy article. I don't know. Can we make it through this one? Pretty long. Actually, it's not too bad. Not too bad. Bear with me. Here we go with the photo again. Out of Halifax. I don't know. Maybe this is his only photo. Well, that's kind of what we're doing a little bit anyway. It's enough that, you know, it gives people a taste, right? RCMP's spin on Glenn Assoon's wrongful conviction makes no sense. That is the view of two former RCMP officers who are familiar with the case. They now established that in 2004, RCMP deleted information on a computer database. Thank goodness it's not on the O drives. Otherwise, that would just be, you'd never see it. It's kind of like doing interviews using Gmail accounts. Fresh. Gonna come out. It's not very good. That's back in another earlier video. Computer database is called Violent Crime Linkage Analysis System. Detailed explanation for BICLAS. Click here. Okay, I think I have the links to this all down below. Starting 2001, VICLAS analysis. David Moore was searching for other murders that McGray may have committed, besides the 6 he had already been charged with. It's that investigation that brought him to the Way murder. Information he helped pull up in the database. So that's where he started from. He was just checking into McGray. Specifically, Moore tells the Halifax Examiner that he made 369 entries related to McGray into the VICLAS database. However, in 2004, however, the information was deleted. Not maliciously. And then just don't go on holidays. But that wasn't the only information Moore had related to McGray investigation. Moore said he had paper backups of each of the 369 entries. Additionally, he did considerable field work and had 10 notebooks. Sounds like a bad investigator. One notebook for each of the 10 witnesses he interviewed about the Assoon case. This is the kind of cop I want. You know? I don't want this. I really don't want that. I don't want Jengas. I don't want shitty people. Shitty people who take my money. Take our money. Fuck off. Go scrub toilets. Give me my underwear back. Moore also had a gigantic flow charts on his office wall. I had a 5x4 chart on Assume. Whew. I wonder how large the chart would be for Nova Scotia. It's in my head, but I'll tell you, it's big. He tells Examiner, over to the top was an onion skin about the same size. The onion skin overlay was a timeline when McGray was in particular place in North America based on the clashing of his welfare checks. I wonder if that's what went missing. In a recorded interview obtained by the Examiner in 2014, Moore told Justice Department lawyer Mark Green, this is the person who originally brought it out, right, that he had consulted psychiatric reports and prison records on McGray. I wonder if that's what went missing too. The psychological report, remember? All that information was collected in boxes in Moore's Vicless office in Sunnyside Tower in Bedford. But in March 2004, when Moore returned from the short vacation, don't go on vacation now, he found all his entries in the Vicless system had been deleted, and all the paper records, the paper backups of the Vicless entries, the notebooks, the flowcharts, the prison reports, etc., had been removed from his office. Most of the information is missing to this day and presumed destroyed. Kind of like the Mazda in the Crusher. Because you don't need that, or phones that somehow just get burned when you're lying on top of them. Right. That happens. All the critical evidence was locked in a 4-tier filing cabinet. Moore tells the Examiner, my office door also had a lock on it, and I worked alone in my office. When I returned from my holidays, my locks were busted off my cabinet. This makes me think of comic book stories. Don't go on vacation. You lose comic book companies. Perhaps, Todd knows what I'm talking about. I don't know. Karen Broydell of Vicless Analysis, maybe you can let me know if he does, who was working in the same Bedford office tower when the information was deleted, hi Jai, and removed, remembers it well. Quote, I know for a fact the materials were taken from the Bedford office when Dave was on vacation. Broydell tells the Examiner. Broydell said she worked in a separate office, but would come to Moore's office to discuss issues. She was quite familiar with the flow charts and with Moore's work in the McGray file. And quote, and that was all gone when he returned from vacation. I remember distinctly the day he came back to work. We all walked in, and he was livid when he came back to work, and understandably so, because he had worked on this file quite intensely for a period of time, and nobody wants their work tampered with, in particular missing. I'll echo that. I'm sure lots of people could echo that. I'm really sick and tired of them fucking with my data. More importantly, I'm really tired of them fucking with family stuff. You're going to get called out on it because there's proof. You don't do that to families with their memories. Ever. You understand me? You're going to get it. I'm pissed about it. I'm pissed. Those families who have been affected by this know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't know the story, it's coming. It will be time for it all. But it has to be the groundwork. Groundwork is really important to everything. And this happened not during office hours because I would have been there and a number of other contemporaries work at the same time. Sounds like Watergate. It's my office you broke into. My paper you stole. My paper you shredded in my machine. A few days later, Moore was transferred out of VICLAS, funny that, to the RCMP Gambling Investigative Unit, a transfer he considers a demotion. The Halifax Examiner at the CBC Canadian Press went to court to get the documents related to the Assoon case unsealed. And on July 12th, Supreme Court Justice James Chipman ruled in our favor. Only then did we learn of the deletion of the VICLAS documents and the destruction of paper documents. Same day, the RCMP released a statement which reads, give me a moment. Today, I wish I had an RCMP kind of something that I could, I don't know. Can't wear a hat or anything, obviously, but something I could dress up in. No costumes, no fake uniforms. I don't do that bullshit, but I don't know, maybe you have to do your hair a certain way or something. Today, the Nova Scotia Supreme Court lifted the sealing order related to Justice Criminal Conviction Review Group's preliminary assessment into Assoon's second-degree murder conviction in 95 homicide of Brenda Way. This resulted in the RCMP Nova Scotia Administrative Review being made public. In 2014, a then-serving RCMP member of then-serving, because he's really shitty, he had to go, alleged his analysis and material related to the homicide of Ms. Way was missing and had been intentionally destroyed. Given the seriousness of the allegations, the Nova Scotia RCMP immediately began an administrative review to determine what had occurred. More make-work projects. The review was conducted by the officer in charge of major crime at the time, who was an expert in the VICLAS analysis. The administrative review was extensive and found that VICLAS worksheets, I haven't actually read this fully yet, deleted in 2004 when employees of the VICLAS unit were asked to review a number of analyses completed from 2001 to 2003 for quality control purposes. Quality control purposes. Quality control purposes. That's what you call people in jail. Quality control. Do you see how they view you? Do you see how they view their own members? This is sick, man. The deletions were contrary to public policy, and shouldn't have happened. They were not done, however, with malicious intent. They always use the same slogans. Oops. In full transparency, that's about as transparent as a log of mahogany. The RCMP provided administrative review to the Criminal Conviction Review Group, another group, the results which factored in its preliminary assessment. But the RCMP statement only addresses the deletion of the VICLAS entries, not the destruction of Moore's paper evidence. I read the RCMP statement to Broydell over the phone. Quote, "Why would you be deleting for quality control purposes?" She responds, "That's really, really peculiar. That doesn't add up, in my opinion. When you're building a database, you're doing your quality control prior to doing your final entry on the system. So the objective is to get as large and as diverse a database as possible in order to do your queries." Sounds reasonable. Sure does make sense to me. Sure does not make sense to me why you would go in and arbitrarily start deleting things for quality control purposes. She continues. That just does not add up. In the training I had for Vi-class, who teaches that training now? Is it Wilson? Wrote the book on it, literally? Oh, yeah. That was, you didn't delete anything. It was put it in there into the system and left it there because, 20 years down the road, some character you've added would be a benefit. So why would you arbitrarily delete them? Doesn't make sense. Does this sound like the 2-year-old document? All of the documents pertaining to Mr. Wortman? The intelligence file to other police departments fell into the shredder. But these aren't paper documents. This is fucking hard drive space. It's not that difficult to buy a bigger hard drive. They've got 1 million square feet of them down in Ottawa. CSE. Attached to RCMP. Both Broydell and another Vi-class analysis, Giles Blinn, who worked in Fredericton, when Broydell and Moore were working in Bedford, tell the examiner that deleting the Vi-class unit would take some work. There's not a button you push and suddenly it's all gone. That would be the fail-safes that are built in, like, oops, oops, it wasn't malicious, oops. Both Blinn and Broydell confirm that only supervisors, not the analysts, could delete the information. Well, white shirts. No one at my level and Dave's level would have the ability to do so, says Broydell. It should be said, but anyway. And it's line by line. You can't just go in and delete entire files. It doesn't work that way. It's an arduous process. You're working on a national database, continues Broydell. So you can't just arbitrarily go in and just delete things just for the sake of doing so. Moore tells me that it would have taken several days working straight through to delete 369 units put onto Vi-class. Several days working straight through. Who's paying for that again? You, me, while we pay for Mr. Assoon in prison. Wrongfully. Paying for it all. Paying for the shredder. Paying for the man hours. For people to sell their souls. What the fuck are we doing? Breaking in offices. Yeah, we'll just figure out when he's going on holidays and then we can do that. It would take a considerable amount of time. That's for sure, she responds. And this is not Dave Moore saying that. This is another employee. Quote, how much would you accomplish in a day? I don't know. I've never been part of that process. But it would definitely be time consuming. Because she hasn't sold her soul. No support for more superiors. The question remains, why would someone delete Vi-class files and destroy Moore's paper evidence? Quote, he didn't have the support of his superiors, says Blinn. Blinn recalls a case he worked in New Brunswick, a cold case involving the corpse of a woman found on Gilbert Island near Fredericton. The woman remained unidentified for over a decade until Blinn, in part using Vi-class database, identified her as Donna Joe, an Indigenous woman who had never been reported missing. I said, can I work on this? Says Blinn. And my superior said, sure, go ahead. Win. I like paying for that. Moore didn't have that kind of support. and his attempts to do independent investigation in the field were resented by his superiors, says Blinn. It's not a direct quote, but wow. You're doing work. Please don't do that. You may look at, we may look bad because you're doing work here. This is fucking crazy, man. Blinn remembers that Moore was working on the McGray case because Moore had asked Blinn to independently run queries on McGray as a check against Moore's work. It all checked out. No issues, says Blinn. We worked for a very unusual individual named Dick Hutchings, says Broydell. And Hutchings basically had an issue with Dave and myself and other people in the office. To me, from my perspective, to be an effective analyst, you have to think outside the box. Oh, that's conspiracy. Oh, that's conspiracy. Like all of you. That's just crazy talk, man. And if you don't do that, you're not going to capture the demographic and the material you need in order to have a successful analysis. And Dick was very much opposed to that form of thinking. Wow. That's fucked. And Dave is a very intelligent man. He's very much out of the box, and he's effective at the same time. And that would irritate Dick to no end. Like he would become very agitated with us all if you questioned him on anything. And he's just very annoyed with the process. He basically ruled the office, or tried to rule the office as best he could, with an iron fist, paying for his underwear. Toilets. Broydell says, Jangus, she did not see Hutchings or anyone else delete the ViClass files or remove Moore's evidence. She can't express an opinion about that. Frankly, had I known what was going to happen, I would have made every effort to stop it because Dave was onto something. And when it came to Glenn Assoon being accused of this, says Broydell. And to me, Moore nailed it way back in 2001. However, the personalities involved there, and I'm not sure why this happened, other than it would be the control of basically putting Dave in the box where Dick wanted him to be. Suitable name. Dick. Sounds like pressure from above. It's all about control. That's what it's about. We have control of you. We own you. That's seriously what it's about. That's why you hear nothing, by and large, from RCMP officers, and the media won't tell you about the ones that do say something, which there's lots. You wonder why people in officers, good officers, get PTSD. You go on holidays, you come back, you've worked on something, your ass off, you're going above and beyond your job, way above and beyond, to prove true justice, and shit gets deleted. Files get destroyed, paper copies end up God knows where, your office is broken into, you're violated in that sense. Come back from holiday? What the fuck, man? I would be losing it. And then to have them turn their back on you and throw you under a bus. Nice. No support. Who deleted the VICLAS files? The administrative review, in quotation marks, of the deletion of the VICLAS unit files was conducted by the RCMP Larry Wilson, officer in charge of major crimes in Halifax. I wonder if I think he's still there. I don't know. I'll have to find that out. Wilson conducted, which would mean he has dealings with the 23. Wilson conducted the review in response to Justice Department lawyer Mark Green, 2014 investigation of Assume. Thank you for coming out and finally doing the right thing. He wouldn't have known about it because I'm sure he would have done it before. According to Green's assessment of the Assume case, in March 2004, Sergeant Hutchings, Dick, not confident in Moore's work, ordered a review of all of his cases. Oh, that sounds like a good use of money for his personal vindictiveness so he can maintain control and power in his office. Dick. Although Dick doesn't recall ordering this review, Wilson indicated that there are notes in some files confirming this was the case. Well, we forgot about that review. This review of Moore's work was also confirmed by the VICLAS analysis. Analysts involving the review of Moore's work in 2004 were interviewed as part of the current, i.e. Green's 2014, 10 years later, investigation confirmed that Hutchings did not tell them to delete Moore's files. So who did it? Wasn't Dick. But it appears that Wilson's review missed most of Moore's VICLAS entries that had been deleted. To begin, the person charged with analyzing the deletions, a Corporal Desrosiers, I'm hoping, found 233 files that had been entered by Moore, not the 369. Moore tells the examiner he had entered. Even then, Desrosiers reviewed only a sample of those entries. In any event, Wilson's administrative review identifies the people who conducted the review of Moore's work that was ordered by Hutchings in 2004 as Constable Mike Waghorn, Sergeant Kevin Tallenbach, and Corporal Tom O'Coin. I see that name quite a bit. Debbie Burstall and Sergeant Ken Bradley. Wilson's review names one person. I like names. I really like names. They're not the systemic crap. Wilson's review names one person who appears to have deleted at least some of Moore's file, but that name is redacted. Redacted. Where's a good portion here? Oh, I know. That's nothing. Redacted. This is what, round 3 on this one? My fucking God, man. Can you give it a break? No. No. Can't. Just keep redacting. Sharpies. Files reviewed by the Sharpie. Sharpie have a significantly higher likelihood of having a missing, significantly higher likelihood of having a missing analysis worksheet. This inference was supported by the following facts. Out of the 39 files with missing analysis worksheets, 30 were reviewed by a Sharpie, according to the notes written in the files. 60% of DMOR files were reviewed by a Sharpie, having no file analysis worksheets compared to files reviewed by a Sharpie. 16% asterisks, a Sharpie 5%, asterisks times 2, a Sharpie 0%, and Sharpie 0%. Two of the files reviewed by Sharpie, footnote, asterisk 1, have a missing analysis worksheet, but are in conflict with the notes that indicate the worksheets were modified, not deleted. Both of those files were accessed by Sharpie after Sharpie, according to Viclass audit logs, asterisk 2 times 2, one file had worksheet removed by K. Tallenbach, and that is reflected by the notes left by K. Tallenbach. You know, this one, Sergeant Kevin Tallenbach. Removing stuff. Okay. Why are you removing stuff? Who ordered Sharpie? Who is Sharpie? Who ordered this one? I think he's got a story to tell. She. Green continues. Wilson stated that he has a good idea who deleted the files based on the review itself, as well as comments made by some of the analysts who were interviewed. Wilson, white shirt Wilson, was not prepared to say who that was during our interview. The name of the individual suspected of deleting Moore's file has been deleted, but not with malicious intent, mind you, from White Shirt Wilson's written report, along with the names of other Viclass analysts. The individual suspected does not recall the file review and denies deleting any of Moore's worksheets. I'm sensing a promotion. Do you? Some analysts said they were concerned about the worksheets being deleted and brought that to the attention of Sergeant Hutchings. Dick. Hutchings has no recollection of this. White Shirt Wilson also stated that, contrary to Moore's belief, he does not think either Sergeant Dick or Sergeant Bradley deleted any of Moore's files. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Understanding that Green, the Justice Department lawyer, was interviewing Wilson about administrative review because Viclass information never made it to Glenn Sassoon lawyer. Way to mount a good defense. And therefore could not be used to establish Sassoon's innocence in the murder of Brenda Way. For Wilson to withhold the name of the person responsible for deleting the files is, well, remarkable. But not surprising. You know? Because it happens all the time. You just get rewarded with promotions. Eye-smelling white shirt up and coming. Wilson, who wrote a book and teaches people how to do this across the country, said he didn't believe that Dick or Bradley deleted the files, but he refused to say who did. So how much faith should we put in this statement? What about Sergeant Ken Bradley? Bradley is a Halifax Regional Police investigator on assignment to the Viclass unit because Halifax and RCMP are kind of one and the same. Really? It's a very weird relationship they have. However, I do sense that there's something up with Chief Kinsella. You can look at the red shirt stuff. Wearing red. He's speaking out. He's doing something quietly, but loudly. Heidi's. No honoring Heidi. Her own department. Mm-hmm. Halifax Regional Police Department investigator on assignment to Vyclass unit. 9 years before Moore's files deleted in 95, Bradley was a forensic ident investigator working on the Brenda Way murder. No bias there. It's a little bit better than the, what was it? Hideous Screech? Shriek? Well, there was some particular things about happening in Vyclass. Really, really odd, says Broydell. And in particular, when you've got HRP members working in there, Ken Bradley would have known about Dave's investigation into the Brenda Way murder. So I don't know what was said or what was done specifically, but the end results I'm not impressed by. The fact that somebody spent a lengthy period of their adult life in prison for a crime they did not commit, I'm less than impressed. We all paid for it. You paid for it. Mr. Assume certainly paid for it. Perhaps maybe some of these characters should fill the shoes. I think they should. I know how well liked they are in prison. General population. No special administrative garbage for them. It will happen. And in today's society, there's no need for that, because the whole objective behind Vyclass is to hone in and get the person who is responsible, not just arbitrarily select someone over here because they have a criminal background or you don't like the color of their hair or that it's long and that he has a beard. Don't judge a book by its cover. I worked for the RCMP for 38 and a half years, continues Broydell. And along my path of service, Vyclass was one of the most disappointing areas I ever worked in. And what is happening in Dave's situation could have been Mike or me or anybody had investigated that file. It's wrong. Wrong on so many levels. My hat's off to her. Balls. I like that. I like paying for it. I like paying for Mr. Moore, for Glenn, for good officers that we celebrate. Now we can listen to Mr. McDonald, Ronnie McDonald, Ronald McDonald. Would you guys like to listen to his thing? 13 and a half minutes on, what is this? Sheldon. You know Ronnie? This Ronnie? The Cert Ronnie? Do you guys like to listen to him? I haven't heard it actually yet. If you don't want to hear it, then we don't have to. No, thank you. No, thank you all. You've definitely been putting in your time work. I don't think that was in response. I get delayed. Sure, play it. Okay. Maybe there's something good in here. I don't know. I think we all know where this is going. Rinse, repeat, garbage. But let's hear it.
It's one of those stories that it's hard to get your head around. In fact, Glenn Assoon was wrongfully convicted. His conviction was overruled. 17 years in prison, and as we know, he was looking for something to come from this. And there was an ask of the Serious Incident Response Team in Nova Scotia to look into this. As we just learned, that has evolved to an announcement that was just made the other day that this organization is going to be looking into the historical matter in Nova Scotia as it's described, and it's the Independent Investigations Office of British Columbia. And the one who will speak to us about this today, joining the conversation, and it's a great pleasure for me to, speak again with Ron McDonald. And just so we're clear as an audience, Ronald J. McDonald, QC, began his appointment with the Chief Civilian Director of the Independent Investigations Office in October of 2017. He was, for the 6 years prior to that, the very first director of the Serious Incident Response Team here in Nova Scotia. And he's joining us from British Columbia. Thank you very much for joining us today.
That's my pleasure. Great to chat again.
And I have to ask, when the ask was made, how this all transpired? How did you become involved in this current investigation?
Well, that's a good question. I got the request from Felix Cacchione, who's the the director of CERT now. He brought this matter up. I recognize this as a circumstance where the public's faith in the justice system in general, no doubt, has been impacted by what has occurred in this situation. And as a result, felt it appropriate that, if possible, have the IIO step up and conduct an investigation to determine what happened, and in particular, whether there were any criminal offenses carried out by any police officer in the matter.
As it's described, it's a historical matter. And what, if any, information did you have about this story prior to it becoming public? There were a few CBC News articles and other investigative reports about what had transpired. I'm just curious, how much of what you may or may not have known will lead this investigation, how that will work out?
Well, I must be honest, Sheldon, I didn't know personally much about this case, other than what someone might have known at the time that Mr. Assoon was convicted. I didn't really know much about this case. Obviously, since then, I have been delving into the background to the case, etc. But that's exactly what we're going to do now. We have a saying at the IIO that we start all of our investigations from zero. And then we gather the facts, we identify the issues that impact the case, we gather the facts that surround those issues, and then once we have as much relevant information we can have about a matter, then we apply the law and facts, and I make a decision as to whether or not there are reasonable grounds to believe an officer may have committed an offense. And that's what we're going to do here, the same as we do in every case.
And who specifically will be doing the investigation? And the reason I ask this is there's been a considerable conversation. You and I even have spoken to this in the past, where it's in some ways perceived as police investigating police. So who are the investigators with the office that you're involved with now?
Well, the team I put together now, the primary team that is handling the investigation, is made up of 3 individuals, all of whom, 2 of whom are lawyers, had been lawyers in the previous life and came to the IIO to work as investigators, and another who is another non-police person with a non-police background. I will have more hands-on role in this investigation than most. And obviously, I've never been a police officer, and
to the best of my knowledge, that's actually, in fact, not true, but I could be wrong. There will definitely be RCMP officers on this case, most assuredly. And that was what I was told. So it should be 50-50. It usually is about 50-50, 50 mix in the IIO case, which is a little bit better than obviously CERT, which is 100% shit. But, they're all friends, right?
I'm nearing the end of my 10th year in civilian oversight. We have other supervisors in the office who will bring experience to the matter, who do have some police background, and who we might rely on for some assistance in understanding what has gone on, and that's really important. But the investigative team itself is made up of persons who have non-police background.
When we talk about an investigation into a historical matter like this, and we know that some records are not around, they don't exist anymore, there's some concern or question about what might have happened is at one point perhaps that some specific information related to this case may have been in fact destroyed. So where do you even begin this process, and what power do you have to compel anyone to cooperate with your investigation?
Well, it's my view that we had the same power that CERT would have to compel assistance. We've already been directly guaranteed cooperation from the Halifax Police through my conversations with their counsel. I'm aware that the RCMP is fully committed to cooperating with this investigation, and it's my view that we will have the ability to compel the witness officers where necessary to cooperate with the investigation as they would in any CERT investigation, because we're really an extension of CERT, and it's as if CERT's doing an investigation, although we've slid in to their place, given the additional resources that we're able to bring to this. As to where the investigation begins and ends, it's a great question. There's a lot of work to be done. This is a very complicated matter. There's a great deal of material to be gathered and then reviewed. We're going to start with effectively getting a briefing, we hope, in the near future from counsel for Mr. Assoon, who can kind of lay out a path to, at least as they understand the case, so that we can better understand the case. And then we're going to talk to everyone involved on both sides of the matter, who can give us information, as we would, as I said, in any investigation, except that this one is historical, and it is much more lengthy than one would normally see with a unusual type of a serious incident investigation.
Do you have any interest in using some of the RCMP investigation into, as they had said, they felt there was no particular malicious intent with the destruction of some evidence? I'm just curious, when some of this work has been done already, do you just sort of set that aside? Do you go back to the original witnesses? How would that even work out? How would you pull that together to try and find out as much as you can whether there was any criminality involved?
Sure. Well, I mean, just of course we would, look at what has been done in the past. We're not going to commit to be bound by any of that. Information is information, so we're going to receive any information that's out there that will include, if possible, previous investigations that were done. But we're going to make up our own minds about what we believe happened and what the consequences, if any, that should flow from what we believe happened. In some ways, there are some similarities between this investigation in terms of its historical nature and the one I did with respect to the Clayton Miller matter in the Sydney area some years ago, and that is, gathering a lot of historical information and pouring through it. This will be even more in depth, I expect, than that. But the key is we take in the information that's there now, and then seek out whatever additional information we believe is necessary and make our own conclusions.
Do you have any intention to speak, or to have your investigators speak with Mr. Assoon himself?
Yeah, certainly Mr. Assoon will be interested in speaking with Mr. Assoon and getting his perspective on what happened and et cetera. That, of course, is a very important part of our investigation. Like I said, though, we're going to speak to all people we deem to be relevant in this matter in an effort to find out as best as we can what went on, how decisions were made, why decisions were made, and what happened.
And obviously there will be some traveling, where I assume that there will be investigators coming to Nova Scotia, or conversely witnesses brought to BC. How will that work?
Well, that's still to be worked out. Needless to say, we need to figure out who it is we need to speak to, and when, and where. This isn't going to be a rushed investigation. I'm not going to promise that this is going to be done in the near future. What I will promise is that this is going to be done very thoroughly, to the extent that it needs to be. And where appropriate, needs to say, our investigators will definitely go to Nova Scotia to meet with people in person. Obviously, the pandemic does face us with certain issues, but we've gotten used to working in a pandemic world now, as best as one can. But where necessary, here in BC, when we do investigations, if we need to meet with people in person to do investigations and take interviews, we do, and we'll do that in this one as well. And if that means going to Nova Scotia, we'll definitely do that.
As you mentioned, difficult to put a timeline on it, but any rough idea? Is this, 12 months, 16 months, 2 years? How?
Yeah, it's going to be. It by its nature, it's going to be lengthy. For example, as I understand it, and my information on this isn't complete, but the time frame behind the Department of Justice's review of Mr. Assoon's conviction, as I understand it, took a better part of 2 years. There's no reason. I certainly hope to be done within that type of time frame, but it's going to be lengthy.
And you mentioned Clayton Miller, and I think one of the more powerful conversations we had about that was your desire to want to get that information in that case. And I'm not revisiting it, but I am revisiting the reaction you got to it, in which people were suspect. And again, for all the reasons that there's some concern over what is perceived to be with the Serious Incident Response Team seconded police officers investigating police. How do you then, in your new role in this new agency, do the best job possible to make people confident that the best investigation is done with the most appropriate outcome?
Well, first of all, I would challenge your comment that people were suspect of the findings in the Clayton Miller case. I mean, yes, there were some who are very connected to that case and very wedded to their views about what happened, who didn't trust or believe in our findings. But I know personally from hearing from many people that they were very pleased with the outcome of that investigation and in particular the transparent nature of it. So I do challenge you on that. And we're going to do anything different here. One has to remember that the final decision and all key decisions made in these investigations are made by myself, an independent, objective person who I believe has demonstrated objectivity now for the better part of 10 years. I've looked at cases in situations where I find police haven't done anything wrong, I'll say that. And I've looked at cases where I find what I believe is police wrongdoing, I'll say that. I am guided by one thing, Sheldon, the truth. And a desire to seek the truth and find it and then tell the truth to the public. I have no allegiances to anything else but that.
And I'm going to be on the record now to say you were always accessible, you were always up front, you were always frank, and I take that challenge and appreciate it. I just know that the Clayton Miller family has had some tough times coming to grips with some of the information that you provided specifically.
I understand that completely, yes.
Well, again, we wish you well, and we certainly will be following along to see what transpires and how this all comes together. Thank you so much for taking some of your day to explain what your role is in this story that has a great deal of interest here in this province.
Absolutely, a real pleasure to speak to you, and I thank you for the opportunity to allow me to bring the message to the broader public in Nova Scotia.
All right, interesting. A lot of the same things. I would be curious, how many employees in his former shit are still there? How many people is he friends with over in the IIO on the other coast? Seem to migrate either from there or go back there. It's kind of the Catholic Church. They all seem to come out of the Lower Mainland. I guess in this case they're going back. Kind of sad. Something going over there. Okay, so that's just archived copies. Okay, so what else do we have? We have a few other stories kind of in the same vein. I guess if you've hung with me for 2.5 hours, there's a lot of connections between things. We can do a couple more here. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your great comments, of course. Pissed my step. The truth. Oh, you see, they just never figured that they would piss people off. I don't know how you can get in that mentality, but whatever. It's a bit cocky. New Brunswick, the RCMP said it didn't have any records about an investigation, but it had thousands. The RCMP investigated the death of Michael Vigneault, who was shot by Bathurst police member in 2015. I wonder if Fitch had any knowledge of this. Fitch has got some interesting connections too. We'll deal with commissioners coming down here soon. The RCMP is apologizing for saying it didn't have any record. Oh, they're apologizing. What about the fire hall? Where's that apology? Where's the apology to the families? Why do they keep deleting memories of families? Pretty gross, man. Really gross. Apologizing for saying it didn't have any records about its 11-month investigation into the death of Michel Vigneault, who was shot by a Bathurst police force member in 2015. In fact, the police agency had more than, 10,000 records. Gosh, I could do almost like 6 million records about the Nova Scotia RCMP investigation into Vigneault's death, which led to criminal charges against 2 Bathurst police officers. You know that thin, pesky blue line. The charges were dropped in 2017 after a preliminary inquiry. More than 2 years after CBC asked for the records through the access to information, because that's how you have to do it. 2 years! More than! And more than 4 years after Vigneault's death, the RCMP disclosed nearly 1,800 pages of documents and more than 1,000 images and videos related to the investigation. I think in the Nova Scotia case, those have all migrated over to the O drive. But we don't have anything. We inadvertently moved them. Sorry. We inadvertently, mistakenly, with no malicious intent. Oops, we had thousands. That came only after an investigation by the Office of Information Commissioner in Canada. Once again, you're paying for that too. The RCMP blamed human error, saying the search of the records wasn't done properly. I'm just going to read this one for now. Although in the end, it's clear that we did not meet our obligations. This appears to be a process failure. Quality of work, not the result of any ill intent. A thesaurus, malicious, ill intent. I guess they're using the thesaurus now. Dan Bryan, the RCMP's Director of Issues Management and Media Relations, wrote in an emailed statement, I'm not aware of any intent to hide or suppress information on the part of the RCMP personnel. And no one for the RCMP was available for an interview. Funny. Minutes after Vigneault was shot outside Bathurst Via Rail Station on the morning of January 12, 2015, Nova Scotia RCMP officers were called in to investigate. The RCMP does not have its own serious incidents response team like neighboring Nova Scotia. Tracker. I'm smelling trackers. New Brunswick does not have its own serious incidents response team, shit like the neighboring Nova Scotia. Instead, police agencies from other jurisdictions are often tasked to investigate police-involved shootings or deaths. Which makes it different how? Because it's still the same thing. In this case, the 2 subject officers were employed by the Bathurst Police Force, but were worked in the now disbanded Northeast Integrated Intelligence Unit. Oh, police and intelligence sometimes don't go together in the same sentence. Sometimes. Sometimes, yes, they absolutely do. Sometimes, no. The unit, made up of officers from several police forces in the area, including the RCMP, focused on gathering intelligence about drugs and organized crime. Vanu appears to be on the officers' radar that day when their supervisor, RCMP Sergeant Ron De Silva, I've seen that name before, now an inspector. Oh, so white shirt. I guess he got a promotion for something, maybe losing things. Received Crime Stoppers tip that Vanu was working from Montreal with a load of drugs. The tips were false. For months, a team of RCMP officers, Nova Scotia, pieced together what led to the shooting. They interviewed about 100 witnesses, probably more than has been interviewed in Nova Scotia. Lead investigator Larry Wilson sound familiar? You know, Larry Wilson, the soon Larry Wilson, described the investigation as, quote, complex and, quote, exhaustive in an email he sent to his team after the investigation concluded. You seeing a pattern? So, but you know, it takes hours to unravel it. Imagine the amount of research it takes, right? Well, the fact that the subjects of this case are police officers added another layer of complexity. But each and every one of you brought an unbiased and professional approach to your tasks. Wilson wrote, unable to locate records. But when CBC asked for all the records from the Nova Scotia RCMP investigation into Vanu's death, who was doing what? Oh, is it Larry Wilson? Is that the same Larry Wilson? Wilson? Is it the same one? Larry Wilson. Inspector Larry Wilson. Fuck me, man. What a joke. Now, Inspector, he got the promotion, right? Now he's looking back into it. I'm sure he's bringing his well-peeled eyes, because he knows how to do this all too well. But when CBC asked for all the records about the Nova Scotia RCMP investigation into Vanu's death, the RCMP had a surprising response. Quote, based on the information provided, a search of the records was conducted in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Inspector Richard Hay of the RCMP Access to Information Privacy Branch wrote in a May 2017 letter. Unfortunately, we were unable to locate records which respond to your request. How is it possible that a division of Canada's largest police force could spend months on a complex investigation into a man's death but not have any records about the investigation? I don't know. How does that happen? How does it happen? But it wasn't possible because it wasn't true. Combing through records. This is what they like to do. If you do ATIPs, they drown you in paper if they decide to answer you when and if. The original request filed in February 2017, who pays for the paper, also asked for the record's detailed process of sending the file to Crown, which the approved criminal charges in New Brunswick, and about the false Crime Stopper tips that led to the police to Venu on the day of his death. CBC filed a complaint about the request in June 2017. Same people, right? Remember, it's all the same. It's just kind of an act, suggesting to make you feel good, suggesting it was inconceivable that the RCMP wouldn't have records about a lengthy investigation. Well, we posed numerous questions regarding the institution's processing of your request. Well, it's basically our request because it's one and the same, and the nature of their search of the record for the records requested. The investigation report from the commissioner's office says a second tasking was conducted, more work projects, and the RCMP located relevant records, which were then reviewed, because you got to pay for that too, to determine whether the documents could be released. An investigator with the Office of Information Commissioner was tasked with reviewing the records, combing through 9 CDs. One CD had thousands of written records on 6,645 pages. There are also more than 3,500 photos, videos, or audio recordings that were reviewed. How many CDs were there again? Oh, that's right, 9. This is one. Some of the records ultimately weren't disclosed for a variety of reasons. Some were duplicates. The final package didn't include any video recordings. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Where's the videos in Nova Scotia again? Are you ever going to get to see them? No. The day outside the Bathurst Via Rail station, according to Nova Scotia RCMP report of the shooting, no such video exists. Nova Scotia RCMP, no such video exists. You can substitute that one in for this one, being the 23. What went wrong? While the commissioner's investigation prompted the RCMP to disclose records it previously said it didn't have, it doesn't explain what went wrong in the first place. All the cameras were broken. Right, yeah, that's what happened. I don't know. Then they're squashing photos and times, getting clipped out of it. Oh, that's problematic for Ken Rubin, an Ottawa-based investigator and researcher who has spent decades using Canada's Freedom of Information system to draw out information in the public's interest. All that effort that Ken could have been, spending with his kids, doing all kinds of good things, he had to waste because we're wasting money on having people waste our time and fuck people over. Like Ken. And then they're going to write about it, and we got to pay for that too. Want my underwear back. You can't just go from no records to 10,000 and say, oh, aren't we wonderful? We've got records for you. No, what happened? Come on. In its explanation, the RCMP said, where probably? Oh, that's right. Oh, I'm so fucking psychic. And read it. Totally. In addition, our ongoing challenges related to the scope and volume of incoming requests. We occasionally encounter situations where individual searches do not identify all the documents they should. Perhaps it should be like the Vicless unit. They should narrow their search parameters. Perhaps behave like Corporal Moore. I don't know. Quote, in this case, through the Information Commissioner's investigation, we discovered that for a variety of reasons, the document search was not executed properly. For a variety of reasons. But don't worry about it. It's all good. He said not all the units should have been asked to search were asked to do so. Others were searching, found no records, which wasn't accurate. Gnashing teeth in darkness. Darkness. Won't be eating at that table. Quote, this situation has provided us with, they never wanted to anyway. Gotta sell your soul. This situation provided us with valuable insight. How much valuable insight are you hearing lately coming from here? Going to hear a lot more valuable insight on the RCMP. How smart are they really getting? Dumber than a special needs stick. Or are they? You know they're not. Valuable insight into gaps in our system. And we will continue to take every opportunity to improve our process. Go away now, you dumb little peons, and please work away so that you can pay our bills. A larger problem. Rubin sees the case as part of a larger problem within the RCMP's access information system. Last year, the RCMP was wading through a backlog of unanswered questions. Do you know how many outstanding requests they have? We'll do those another day. Prompting the police force to reverse its policy that forced members to go through the access of information to get their own medical and personnel files. But that one is a wretched story. There's our stuff, and then there's members' stuff. Ooh, nasty. Earlier this year, an access to information officer emailed CBC News, which is the same thing, to ask whether the requester still wanted overdue records from 2017, noting that it's experiencing a high volume of requests with limited resources. The limited resources is because they cut those departments so that it does backlog. Not tinfoil. Intentionally. That is part of their strategy. Cut the staff, and then you can't get to the files. And then if you decide to, whatever you want to share, you will, but you also inundate people with mountains of paper. It's common knowledge that the RCMP, in terms of access to information, has not been well organized or forthcoming in the last few years, and it has huge delays and some other problems. They're not on top of the transparency bureaucracy, Rubin said. Huh. What else can we do here? This one the other day. Go back a little bit, not too far. RCMP accuses 3 of its own officers of obstructing justice, destroying evidence. Charges laid in Moncton and related to officers conducted during 2019 Operation Force says. I wonder if Wilroy likes that one. He can put it in his box, his global box. The New Brunswick RCMP has charged 3 of its own officers with obstruction of justice. A News release by the RCMP say the charges were laid against Corporal Matthew Potvin, Constable Eric Pichet, and Constable Graham Bork in Moncton Provincial Court, December 28th. According to court documents, the three officers allegedly, quote, willfully attempted, in brackets, to obstruct, which means they've inserted that. So willfully to obstruct, something has been inserted here, or the sentence isn't complete, right? Obviously, it's not starting off with the capital, so we're getting sample sentences again. To obstruct and to pervert, yes, 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 yes. Not unaware, but thank you for bringing that to other people's attention. Again, all part of the bigger story. Willfully to obstruct, pervert, or defeat the course of justice. I'll just remove the attempted because you've already got allegedly in there. Defeat the course of justice by destroying evidence during a criminal investigation on May 15th, 2019. Have they learned anything here? Nah. Go and work and pay for them, please. We've got to pay for them. The release say the charges are related to the officer's conduct during a 2019 operation, while officers are scheduled to appear on March 15th, and all three were suspended with pay on December 15th. The RCMP's Professional Standards Unit, is this the prostitute or whatever, the RCMP Pro, Professional Responsibility Office, or whatever the fuck they want to call it today? The RCMP's Prostitute Standards is conducting a separate investigation under the Force's Code of Conduct. Always Code of Conduct. Now, fast forward. Obstruction charges dropped against two Moncton RCMP officers. Crown says no reasonable prospect of conviction. That, of course, is us. Also says no reasonable prosecution of us. We'll just pay more money for everybody. Prospect of conviction after discussions with defense lawyers. Charges of obstruction of justice against two Kodiak regional RCMP officers have been dropped by the Crown prosecutor, who says there are no longer a reasonable prospect of convictions. Corporal Matthew Potvin, Constable Eric Pichet have each been charged with a single count of obstructing justice by destroying evidence in a criminal investigation. The alleged destruction occurred May 15th, 2019. Lawyers for Potvin and Pichet appeared in Moncton Provincial Court on Monday when two officers were set to elect for a mode of trial. Neither officer was present in court. You learn from the best. Crown Prosecutor Claude, you can't face your responsibilities. Go to court, you've got to stand before the man. Crown Prosecutors Claude Hachet, I think actually that should be a requirement. Anybody you can't not go to court. That's a big no-no. Put out a bench warrant. Claude Hachet told Judge Luc Labonte that based on, quote, extremely thorough discussions with defense lawyers for the two officers and new information that arose in the conversation, the charges will be withdrawn. The Crown no longer has a reasonable prospect of conviction, Hachet said. That should end the matter. There, go home now. Constable Graham Bork was also charged. All three were suspended with pay December 15th and charged December 28th. Bork is set to appear in court May 17th. So why were they charged if it's just going to go away now? Must be like that information they just kind of discovered. Renee Roy, who representing Bork, was in courtroom Monday when the charges against the other officers were dropped. She told reporters that she was happy for the two officers and hopes the same outcome of her client. RCMP have not said, what evidence was allegedly destroyed, or what the investigation affected. That's that big, huge drug raid that was done. Interesting drug raid. How many was it? 9 forces? Nine units were used? A defense lawyer has said in court the evidence was a surveillance video from the investigation into the alleged drug trafficking. Oh, they found those. Don't worry about that. They have copies of tape there. Not in Dunphy's case, not in the case of Nova Scotia. Crappy, grainy stills taken with cell phones that are faked. Pretty awesome. Defense lawyers Luke Roy, representing Potvin, and Brian Monroe, who represents Piché, declined to say what new information led the Crown to the Crown's decision. They also declined to elaborate on what the alleged actions led to the charges, given Bork still faces charges. You think you're going to hear about it? He's very happy, Luke Roy said, after this charge goes away, because he's going away too, right? That case is just... He's very happy, Luke Roy said, about his client's view of the outcome. Corporal Potvin is a good cop, and I don't see any reason why he won't be back in the Kodiak force soon. Again, it is our judicial process, but there's clearly something stinky. When the charges were announced, the RCMP said the 3 officers would face a separate investigation under the force's code of conduct. They don't like to charge, but, because it's kind of embarrassing, so something wasn't right. Corporal Hans Ouellette, a spokesperson for the New Brunswick RCMP, said on Monday that the officer's status with the force will be reviewed pending the outcome of criminal cases and the code of conduct review. The Public Prosecution Services did not provide an interview. It's okay, because everybody gets paid. Now, am I missing some cases here? I am. Why am I missing stuff? Where did it go? Now, see, this is an older case. The Newfoundland. Is this the Newfoundland one? No. Where did the Newfoundland one go? I've misplaced the Newfoundland one. Well, maybe I'll just have to wrap it up then. For now, there's always more. But it's the point. It's the point. The connections, this business about West Coast, East Coast, the connections between an older story, which is most certainly there, which connects to the story that happened in Nova Scotia, not some bollocks that they try to sell you about. I wonder... Actually, I need to have a conversation with somebody before I can talk about that. So I'll wait. I'm going to hear from them today. But understanding these connections, the corruption, everybody's friends, hands wash each other, we're all paying, families pay, obviously, wretchedly, Mr. Soon pays. It doesn't matter who pays, and we pay for it. Literally, with cash, money. The whole thing, the whole sham, the media sham, the court sham, the government sham, all of those bollocks charities down there, shams. Everything is a sham. The commission's a sham. Not that I'm saying don't go and do it. You have to. Because people can't capitulate to this one. You can never capitulate. Dunphy, yes, the Dunphy case, a Newfoundland. RNC, it was RNC's destruction of stuff. Anyway, and of course we had, who was it? Parsons, right? Parsons? He went out. You know, this is what happens. This is why you see the Jenga happening, because people are starting to speak about this shit. I think the Dunphy thing may have done, come back up now into the public discourse, which is good. I like the Dunphy case, the Dunphy inquiry. It's really good. It's really good. It shows some really sick garbage that's going on within the system. I'll link the playlist for it. I would familiarize yourself with it. Dunphy, Don Dunphy. Tweety Don Dunphy. Killed on Easter Sunday in his home. That's nice. Fucking assholes. Because he was a tweeter. You can't do that now, can you? The premier doesn't like that. You gotta die. And then you get off. Okay, and you see, there you go. Who's this over here? Who's that? A Don. Tweeting is violence. I'll link this playlist. I should just put it up. I think I've got all the videos downloaded. They're just in that unlisted file that I have. One last thing I wanted to do. You're going to have to give me one moment. This is longer, and probably I should put it up as a separate video, so maybe I'll start a separate stream, and then that way, I'm not holding on people. It'll probably get taken down for copyright. Maybe. It's a very interesting listen, though, because of, here is, oh no, that's looking at something else. It's a very interesting listen because it gives a feel for how powerful the RCMP in fact is. Give me one moment, please, and I will find it. Is this it here? Now, shit. It is in here. Let's see if I can do this. For those of you who want to listen, I'll put it up afterward on a separate stream. I'll just do it as a premiere. You guys can listen and chat because I always like to read your guys' chats. If I can. There's a few interesting lines he says in here. Oh, shit. Where's it here? It's with the Chuck Rosenberg. Chuck Rosenberg doing an interview with Bob Paulson. He discloses some very interesting things in the discussion. Here we go.
This incredible Japanese invention lets you have fast, reliable.
Go away. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to start a separate stream. The next thing will be, I think it's about an hour
internet
long.
Connection anywhere.
But I really, it's a really great demonstration on how powerful the RCMP is. Bob Paulson very much still kind of rules his roost from afar, even though Brenda Lucky's at the helm. Bob Paulson obviously tied to all kinds of stuff that's still going on with his drinking buddy and Good Fun and the CSIS and intelligence stuff. So it's all really, spicy and interesting. So I would give a highly recommend listening to it. But I'll put it on separately, and then that way, you know, if you guys want to tune out, you don't have to. Hates Passover even more. I'm going to avoid Passover discussion because Passover really gives me the warbles. A lot of there's a lot of relabeling going on, and it's very insidious and, to me, subversive. I always think of Titus 1:10 through 16. Anyway, my opinion. Thanks very much, everybody. God bless you all. God bless everybody in the Discord. And, of course, God bless the 23. I'll start another stream for the Bob Paulson. Take care.